All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking today. It is Friday. It's free for all. That means, well, I'm going to kind of revisit some stories that we've been talking about this week, and I'd love to hear from you. Again, free for all. Everyone can call in anytime. That's the rule here anyway. That's really what we're about, is the conversation, trying to have a dialogue and put together a kind of group think hive mind. I like that expression. You know, the bees all get together and they together make all that honey and build a beautiful beehive. Any one individual bee could never do that. So together, hopefully we form a hive and we can solve the problems that we're facing. And those problems are really, really, really serious. Now, one thing that will help me solve my problems is, yes, subscribe now. Please do. If you haven't yet done so, there's the bell. Please click. You know, I noticed yesterday's YouTube video about Mamdani. It was just called Worry, and basically my worry, my concern that the numbers still aren't adding up to a certain Mamdani victory, which we definitely have every reason to expect, given the quality of the candidates, specifically Mamdani, such a cut, not just one cut above, but numerous cuts above the alternatives in that race. And yet we still see that in a head-to-head matchup with former disgraced New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, Mamdani, with a lead, a decent lead, but not over 50%. So that's why I said worry. That video performing well, performing better than a lot of my others do. And what I ask folks to do is, please do click subscribe and join us on Halitics, because you'll get notified of my videos that way automatically. I do post them on Halitics. And I also obviously originate these videos on YouTube. But if you subscribe, you don't have to worry about the algorithm putting my videos in front of you, because for whatever reason, maybe you've clicked on a few of my previous ones, maybe yesterday's topic about the mayor's race in New York probably interested a lot of people. So it kind of cut through the algorithm. But the best way to defeat that, frankly, just please click subscribe, click like, interact. We've got a comment I want to share with you a little later in the program about yesterday's topic. So I want to share that. But any kind of interaction really, really helps. On Halitics, what we've been doing for over now close to 2 years, tragically, the Israeli genocide, the all-out, full-on mass murder of Palestinians in Gaza, and also, frankly, in other places too, the West Bank, Lebanon, it continues unabated. And we're, in fact, obviously entering at this point endgame, meaning a final solution for the Palestinian people, the Gazan people under Israel's thumb, under their control, being crushed, being destroyed, being wiped off the planet, eradicated, genocide. Those are the words, the horrific words that clearly sum up exactly what Israel and the United States are doing to human beings, to children, to babies, to moms, to dads, to grandparents. This is Nazism 21st century. That's what it is. It's the worst crime I've seen, I've observed. And, words just, again, I've said this over and over, we live our lives and we take joy in our families, and sometimes we see something on TV or on the computer, where have you, whatever, we read in a book and we smile. But when you bear in mind this overarching shadow, this just horrific, not reminder, but this horrific example of the worst that humans can do, it makes me feel guilty, to even take some joy in life. There's guilt involved because I see what's happening and I'm trying to stop it. I'm doing what I can, obviously, with zero success, zero effect. People who do have far more influence than I do have also similarly been unable to stop the American-Israeli genocide. It's the worst thing I've seen in my lifetime. Gaza City and surrounding areas are officially under famine. This is today's newspaper. UN monitors say, at least 500,000 people are facing the most severe conditions. And there appears to be really, no real movement whatsoever to alleviate those conditions, right? I mean, we hear Israel saying, "Oh, we're letting food in," and every now and then a truck or two, nowhere near the sufficient to address the need to stop the deaths, the dying, and their bombing as well and shooting. I read someone, I'm not going to post it, but some meme from some Zionist, and I think I'm going to start calling them Zion-Nazis, from some Zion-Nazi claiming that Israel is getting such a bum rap. Israel's actually feeding the Gazans. So why are we all so critical of Israel? Look what they're doing. These are their enemies. Yeah, the little children, the babies, the seniors, they're Israel's enemies, I guess. And Israel's feeding them. Well, Israel actually, I don't believe, is feeding them. The food trucks aren't coming from Israeli stocks or Israeli stores. But to the extent Israel may be, to a degree, I think the United States has been the one paying for the supplies that aren't getting into Gaza, and maybe Arab countries as well. To the extent that Israel is providing anything to the Palestinians, it's because it's deprived them of everything. In Auschwitz, some of the Jews who were being held captive before being murdered by the Nazis, they didn't kill everyone right away. They didn't put them all in the gas chambers immediately. Some were, put to work either helping in the machinery of death or building weapons for the Nazi army. They fed them. They got some food. They got a little bit of food. So I guess that would be so look at how we're giving them a bad rap. They're murdering all these Jews, you say, but they're feeding those same people. I mean, that's the argument. Does that really persuade you that Israel somehow is being unfairly criticized? Because, well, yeah, I guess some of their people are giving out some food while they're actually enticing hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands even, Gazans to their deaths. Does that persuade you? Sure doesn't do anything for me. Join me, 240-242-5646. I tested the phones. They are working. The latest from the Turkish news agency Anadolu Ajansi. This is 50 Gaza. Now, this is actually an update from yesterday. So we don't have an updated number for beyond what we provided you in yesterday's program in my thumbnail. So we're just going to go with the total figures from yesterday. No change. Obviously, there have been more deaths, but they haven't been updated. So we'll just give you that same number. I just cannot. I want this to be in the forefront of everyone's mind, because when we make political decisions, I have said over and over, I think the only way to have meaningful change is through politics. We have to elect better people. We have to get rid of the bad people and elect good people. And the way we do that is consider what are the most important politics, what are the most important policies, what politics are most important to us, what policies will make life better. And I don't think anything could be more important right now than whether a politician, a candidate, an elected, an incumbent supports the Israeli genocide. Nothing is as important, I believe. I understand for some folks there will be more important factors such as jobs, right? Such as wages. I get that. But as important, I can't ask people to put other people's considerations above their own children, their spouses. I get it. They're themselves. I get that. But as somebody who has enough, me, probably too much. I have too much, actually. And I'm one of those people who says, we need to create a society where all have enough and none have too much. I have too much. Someone in that very fortunate camp, to me, the most important thing right now is ending this genocide. And that means we have to support candidates who are outspoken against it, who have made clear that they will do everything possible to stop it. Since October 7, this is the same numbers we had yesterday. 62,122 Gazans officially killed, according to Hamas Ministry of Health. And that Ministry of Health is consistently understated, undercounted the true number of dead. They're credible. They're believable. Israel is not. Hamas is, certainly when it comes to reporting deaths. From March 18 to today, Trump and Netanyahu have killed at least 10,576 Gazans, and over half, and I give 5,000 conservative number, women and children. So that's where we are. If you want to comment on this, I'd love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. If you have any thoughts on what any of us can do, I actually am going to go up to the tri-state area around Manhattan. So that's New Jersey, obviously tri-state, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut. Won't be in Connecticut. We'll be in New Jersey. We'll be in New York starting tomorrow for a media conference. Actually, Max Blumenthal, I mentioned this yesterday, is he's a host and I think founder of the Gray Zone. Aaron Mate will be there, several others. Jimmy Dore is going to be performing stand-up. I'm not sure if he's going to be at the conference itself. I'm not going to be at the stand-up. I was not interested in his comedic stylings, and especially not paying extra for it. But I certainly have great respect for the Gray Zone folks. And there's going to be other hosts as well. I think Sabby Sabs and some others. So hopefully they'll help me. I'll learn from them how to build this brand even greater. Halitics, get more views. Again, the best way you can help me is you can subscribe, also share, and comment. So they'll help me with that, and also I'm going to work to help elect, one of these guys. You'll see the picture. So the one on the right, I think as you're looking at your screen, yeah, the one on the right, Zoran, I will be canvassing for him Sunday in New York City, in Manhattan. And again, I'm a little worried about the numbers. I mentioned that yesterday. Even when you drop Adams out, it doesn't really help Zoran. He doesn't get much of Adams' vote at all. Or Sliwa's if they both are dropped out, whereas Cuomo gets about 11-point bump. So that's where I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest with you. We'll see. Got a comment I wanted to share with you with respect to yesterday's program, Worry. And I don't know if I've seen Grouchy Monk before. A lot of times I don't identify commenters, but this is on the YouTube page, which is where you are right now. So you'll have no trouble seeing Grouchy Monk. I don't know if I know Grouchy Monk. I may know Grouchy Monk. If you're watching Grouchy Monk, give us a call. I thought this was a really interesting comment on yesterday's program. I suspect that undecided likely voters will probably just not vote or vote for Mamdani. I hope you're right, Grouchy Monk. Undecideds lack the passion and fear to vote, and Cuomo is very uninspiring. No question about that. Cuomo, like Kamala, uninspiring and noticeably oblivious to real people, 100%. I think Cuomo has a little bit of charisma, which Kamala lacks completely. On the other hand, Cuomo is arrogant and thuggish, like Hillary. Certainly he's arrogant and thuggish. I'm not sure if I would. Is Hillary thuggish? I mean, her actions are thuggish, but does she come across as thuggish? Sure, she's a bully, but yeah, I guess so. No, nobody's going to be moved to vote for Cuomo out of fear of Mamdani, who is utterly reasonable, very attuned, and seemingly genuine. Mamdani is one of the most attractive candidates this country has had in my lifetime. Well, I love what you're saying, Grouchy. I hope you're right. There's a lot of wisdom in it. Maybe, I hope you're not doing this, but maybe you're you're exaggerating the competence of the American public. You're what is nobody ever went broke? Overestimating. Maybe you're overestimating a little bit. You're saying nobody's going to be moved to vote for Cuomo out of fear. I don't know. Some of the impassioned clergy, perhaps, certainly in the more religious Jewish communities, and maybe some African-American pastors as well, may do a decent number on Mr. Mamdani. That is a real fear that I have. And Also, middle class, upper middle class, people who are doing well in New York City, that are like, oh, I finally made it. I can finally afford an apartment. And now Mom Donnie's going to, turn it into some kind of a slum and homeless shelter. I think that fear is out there. I hope that Cuomo isn't able to exploit it. I doubt he will. I want to be honest. I've said if I were in any of the candidates' shoes, my goal just to win that election, of course I would prefer to be in Mamdani's. I think he is the clear favorite. But the shouting ain't over. Look, Hillary was the clear favorite in 2016. She lost. I actually thought I went on this program and I said Kamala was going to win. I really believed that. A week before the election, some pretty high quality polling came out showing her ahead. I've shown the clip before, and not by like just 1 point. I mean, there were 4 or 5 point margins in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. There was that Selzer poll that showed her ahead of Trump in Iowa the weekend before the election. So I know that the betting markets really always had Trump a slight favorite. I really thought she would win. She lost pretty badly, didn't she? I think Mamdani will win. I hope he wins. I think he'll win, but we'll find out. Grouchy Monk, thanks for the comment. All right, another story that I wanted to respond to. Now, I talked about this 2 days ago with a friend of Halitics, Chuck Pinocchio, and he's a D.C. resident. We talked about the presence of the National Guard in D.C., and both Chuck and I lamented the presence, not just National Guard, but federales, ICE, rousting people up. I showed you a video. Somebody just stopped on the street. Lord knows, because I guess they were suspected of being, quote, illegal, unquote. I don't like to use that term, illegal, person without documentation. I get it. There were comments in Halitics, and I want to respond to Kristen, who said, hey, you do need immigration laws. And I agree, we do need immigration laws. I don't think open borders is the answer. There's no question. I agree with that. But there's such a huge difference between open borders and rounding people up in broad daylight in the streets because you suspect they might not be here legally, and then sending them to gulags or this alligator Alcatraz that now apparently has to be closed for the time being. I'm sure Trump will never close it, but court order because they violated environmental laws, didn't do a full impact study, which, by the way, that's a really good law and it should be enforced. There's no way Trump, I believe, will comply with the court order or the law. We'll see what happens. But lamenting the presence of the federal troops and the National Guard in the district, I think it's very problematic in a lot of ways. And I do think that, yes, we have to have border control, but let's treat people with dignity, with humanity, with decency. Let's have all manner of different ways to, make exceptions. Somebody's in this country for 10 years, even if maybe they overstayed their visa or they somehow snuck in. Well, they built a life for themselves. They're not hurting anybody. Let's figure out how we can allow them to become citizens, period, without huge charges and expenses and all of that. And most importantly, because I accept the argument, it's true, that more immigrants does tamp down wages. You increase the supply of anything, Econ 101 tells you its price drops. So if you have more potential employees to draw from, you can pay them less. I get that. It's true. There's no question about it. Let's figure out how we stop the pressure on people in the global South to come to this country. Let's make life better there. Let's make life tolerable there. Of course, we spent the past 100+ years making life worse in the global South. So folks there often have no option but to come to the United States. So, regarding the presence, I have a problem with it, but what conservatives have pointed out, I checked the story out. This appears to be accurate. Here's Fox 5. This is not the Fox, quote, news channel. This is just Fox 5 News. I assume they have a conservative leaning. I don't really watch a lot of TV, so I don't know. But this is a confirmed story. So the crime rate has dropped drastically. I mean, well, certainly when it comes to the murder rate, there haven't been any homicides. I don't know how far back we go. And that's now 8 days in counting. This is from Wednesday, but there were no reported homicides as far as I am aware. And I did some research, and they might discover a body. It looks like Thursday was also a homicide-free day, where Wednesday was. So this would be 8, could be up to 9 days now without homicides in the District of Columbia. So that's a big deal. Let's look up the presence of those troops, of those police, some police, National Guard and ICE, I guess you could call them police, has really made the district a safer place. And I mean, I'm not surprised. Honestly, I'm not. I mean, we talk about how it would make it, people are scared. You don't like to see lots of police. This isn't something we're happy to see necessarily. Our troops, armed troops patrolling the streets in the city, but they do make it safer unless you're one of their targets. I get one comment was, well, a target? You mean because you're breaking the law? Well, because they suspect you might not be in this country legally. Because they suspect it. Not because they saw you commit a crime, not because they have probable cause, not because there's a warrant, but because they don't like your looks. Now that is very problematic. But violent crime is down.
Well, a growing number of National Guard troops are in Washington, D.C., and that number could nearly double in the coming days after 3 more Republican governors agree to send reinforcements at the request of the White House. Since August 7th, the White House says there have been 550 arrests in the district. The Metropolitan Police Department made 527 of those arrests. The U.S. Marshal Service showed 225 of the people arrested were alleged illegal immigrants. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. Let's go right to Fox 25's Jeff Abel and a look at whether the National Guard could help curb crime in Maryland.
But when the National Guard hit the ground in Washington last week, that city's crime fight went into overdrive. And now we're seeing the impact and the dramatic reductions in crime.
When the National Guard rolled into Washington last week, the locals seemed skeptical.
The crime is minimal here. There's not really a lot of crime here.
All right, let me stop it for a little bit because this is a pretty long video. It's over 3 minutes. I want to play all of it because I think it's valuable from Fox. Just a couple of points. You can see most of the police by most of the arrests by Metropolitan Police Department, the federal troops and the National Guard more as a supporting role. That's fine. That's better. So first of all, this isn't full scale fascism as I've described. I mean, is having federal troops violating the sovereignty of the district is very problematic. It sure smells like fascism, but at least they're letting the Metropolitan Police Department be the front line of law enforcement, which is appropriate and good. And I'm glad of that. So that's point one. Point two, what this gentleman is saying here is there's not a lot of crime here. That's true and it's not true. Some of the neighborhoods are very safe. He's on the mall. It's safe there. There are areas of D.C. that are not safe, where there are dangers. We saw it's the 19th highest murder rate, I believe, in the nation. And that's high. I mean, that's just high. There are worse cities, more dangerous cities. I've never really felt, at least in, maybe 30 years ago when I used to bike into the city, there were times when I was a little nervous. I haven't felt that it's dangerous when I go down there. But I've also not been in high crime neighborhoods. So there's a problem. It's a problem. Having more police, having more uniform presence makes a city safer. There's no question about that. Is that the way we want to try to reduce crime in America? Is have troops on every corner? I mean, it would work. I will tell you this. People want to feel safe. people want, of course, they want to believe that their children can walk down the street without being accosted. They want to go to bed without fear that their mother or grandfather might have been mugged. That is the way it is. That's how people are. And if Democrats can't keep cities safe, if they can't put enough police on the streets, then people will embrace law, quote, law and order, unquote. They'll embrace thuggish police tactics because people want to feel safe and they want to be safe. So the choice, again, should not be between inadequate, understaffed police forces and massive police presence, which, by the way, costs tons of money, very expensive. There are much better, more cost-effective ways to reduce crime. But those ways would also reduce the power and influence of the billionaire class, redistributing wealth and income down, taking assault weapons, semi-automatic and automatic weapons off the streets. That would cost the billionaire class profits. And it would reduce their power as well. It would reduce people's dependency on them. If everyone had enough and no one had too much. So the alternative that they'll embrace is we'll give you police, but we're going to take away your rights. We're going to take away your freedom from being arrested without a warrant, without probable cause. Your freedom to simply walk down the street and not feel an overwhelming government presence. And people will give that up if the alternative is dangerous streets, constant threat, criminals in charge. Those shouldn't be the two choices.
To me.
But with the guard on the ground, crime is on the decline. For the first time in a long time, D.C. has gone 7 days without a homicide. And that's not all. Carjackings are down 83%. Robberies are down 46%. Car thefts down 21%. Crime is down 22%.
So I want to stop it again. So those are really powerful sounding numbers. But again, we're only talking about 9 days. So you have to look at, is down 22%, what, down from 10 to 8? Is that such a significant, or 11 to 9? Is that such a significant drop? It could be, but it's only 2, right? If you're saying armed robberies is down from 11 to 9, that's 22%, but it could go right back up. And so there's still violent crime. It isn't gone. But that said, yes, greater police presence does mean safer streets. And we have had fewer police, right, in the past 50. American cities were not safe places in the late 60s and 70s. And during that period of time, the number of police on the streets was really dropping. You used to have beat cops. You'd have police walking neighborhoods. You'd have 2 police in a vehicle rather than 1. So we've seen cutbacks in budgets. We've seen reductions in forces. And that's been part of the reason we've had unsafer cities. They've gotten better in recent years, better policing, other factors involved, more cameras, right? Everywhere you go, there's a camera watching you, and that helps solve crimes and get people off the streets who are violent or who are predators. So, it's a cost balance, a cost benefit analysis. The best benefit is, and with the least cost, is when you have a relatively egalitarian and a society far more egalitarian than ours, far more equal. That and without all the weapons. That's not where we are. The alternative, fascism, right? Police keeping tabs on everything we do. with scant regard for the rights of citizens or for the rights of anybody.
When you have these kind of numbers going down, it basically says this is a success, and that means people feel safer.
Like many big cities, Washington's police department is critically short-staffed.
People who don't.
So that's neoliberalism. That's huge cuts to the billionaire class's taxes. That's cuts to budgets of big cities. Short-staffed police. So yeah, if you're not going to let the district hire police, you're not going to let the people of the city who are being policed control their cops. Well, you send in ICE, you send in federal officers, you send in National Guardsmen and women, and you will have safer cities. But this is, again, a far from ideal solution.
Safe aren't free.
Sergeant Betsy Smith with the National Police Association says it is ripe for federal help.
More police generally equals less crime.
All right, so I'll stop it there. I want to just make one other point. More teachers generally means better education. It's identical, right? And yet we're not investing in teachers. And in the long run, having more teachers would mean fewer criminals going down the road. People who commit crime tend to be violent crime, street crime, not the white-collar criminals. That's a different kettle of fish. But the people who commit street crime, they're people who are poor, who are poorly educated, who don't have other options. And this administration and Democratic administrations of late, they're not concerned about education. They're not concerned about schools. If you don't want an overwhelming police presence in your city, if you want local cops, if you want reduced crime, then we need to figure out how to elect different and better politicians across the board. Those who will raise taxes on the rich, those who will fully fund public schools, those who are not going to accept the blandishments of for-profit educators, for-profit police forces, and the captains of industry and finance and the military who want themselves to be protected at all costs. I don't see the Democratic Party on your side. I think that the answer has to be, at this point, Greens. I don't know who is speaking the way I am, who has this recognition of the problems that poor, struggling, working people face and how they're even willing to embrace fascistic solutions if they'll be safer, if they'll have jobs. And we're seeing that the Trump economic policy of tariffs does appear to be working. So if Trump is able to, notwithstanding using fascistic techniques, taking away people's freedoms, rights, imposing curfews, which we don't like, but we'll take it if we'll be safe or safer. And it's the same with Trumponomics, whatever you want to call it. The tariffs, and I've said this from long before, I said this for 10, 15, 20 years. Always say this, tax the goods. We should not tax the goods. We should tax the bads, not the goods. And the bads include goods made overseas by foreign workers, goods that when we purchase them, our hard-earned dollars go overseas. Now, I'm somewhat skeptical of of all economic data because we've seen, for example, Trump firing the Bureau of Labor statistician because she said that the employment growth was very tepid. Maybe he was right. Maybe the numbers were. I'm sure she didn't cook the books, but maybe the numbers were a little bit lower and would ultimately be adjusted upward. In any event, unclear. This is at the end of July. But according to Quartz, and this is based on surveys of manufacturers, we're making more stuff here. U.S. manufacturing is picking up, but so are consumer prices. Well, that's why there's more manufacturing, because the producers can sell their goods that are made here at higher prices. And the reason they can do that is because of the tariffs. Foreign competition now cannot undercut American manufacturers to such a great degree. This allows them a little bit of growth in terms of pricing, allows them to raise the prices and therefore their profit margins slightly, and also hire more. So we are absolutely seeing manufacturing picking up, and I think this is clearly a result of the tariffs. Now, it's interesting because the Quartz article did not want to give credit to the tariffs. And in fact, the Quartz article indicates that the tariffs could ultimately prove harmful because higher prices will mean less consumption. It's true, but the higher prices mean less consumption of foreign-made goods because that's where you're seeing the major price hike. American manufacturers aren't raising their prices to the same degree as the tariffs. If they did, they would lose the price advantage they have from relatively higher expenses imposed on foreign manufacturers. So American manufacturers can raise their prices a little, but not as much as the tariffs, which means that when you buy a good that's made in this country, some of that money is going into the government, which means we can reduce our taxes. The tariff, it's not going to the government in terms of a tariff, because tariffs are only imposed on foreign goods. But when you buy here, it's going to American workers who are spending the money in American restaurants and American stores. And this benefits us, obviously, without question. And also it's taxed because there's income to American workers. That income is taxed. So the tariffs we're seeing a benefit. Now, if this continues, again, right-wing populism, if the Democrats don't have an answer to it, is going to continue to win at the ballot box. Now, what do I think is the answer to it? Now, you see this, that's why I'm somewhat skeptical of all these numbers. This is what CNN Business reported 3 weeks ago. U.S. job growth stalls. Just 73,000 jobs added in July with stunning downward revisions in recent months. So that's why Trump fired the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics statistician. I get that. It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. But so again, we look at these numbers and we're like, well, is there really growth in manufacturing? Could that be cooked? My answer would be probably not, because tariffs, as a matter of course, will increase production in this country. Just that simple. Now, there may be costs, and they may not be well thought out, and they may be, subject to all sorts of corruption, right? Well, if I bribe you, will you keep the tariff low in my industry, what have you? And why would someone do that? Why would an American company want low tariffs? Well, if they import goods as part of their process, they want to keep those goods lower price. If they're a retailer, if they're Walmart, if they're Amazon, sure, they would want to keep tariffs low because that boosts their bottom line. It allows them to sell cheap foreign goods, undercut competitors who sell American goods. My sense, my belief, my understanding of basic economics, all of that tells me when you impose tariffs, you stimulate American manufacturing. But again, the numbers all have to be taken with a lot of grains of salt, as you can see. If Trump doesn't like the numbers he hears, he fires you. So that's going to incentivize people to provide numbers they want. basically, we've seen pretty static unemployment rate. Yes, we saw a drop in the number of jobs created, but at least we weren't in a recession as of July, adding just 73,000, not 200, but at least we didn't shed jobs, and the unemployment rate holding relatively steady at about 4.2% at this point. I don't know whether, we'll see over time whether the increase in manufacturing leads to higher employment here. It should. It actually really, really should, but there are a lot of other factors involved, including if, for example, Walmart sells less goods, then it might fire workers. So then, if they're dependent on foreign product for their inventory, for their sales. So there's a push and pull. But on balance, yes, tariffs should lead to greater manufacturing. There's other factors. Government has fired a lot of people. The U.S. government, I believe, was the number one employer, if Walmart isn't. So that could also cause unemployment to rise. In the end, you're seeing more manufacturing jobs because of the tariffs, in my opinion, and this will lead to better economic conditions for millions of Americans. Only if the Democrats can come up with a response that will lead to better quality of life for working people can they still win elections. If Trump's going to boost income through the tariffs, it's just that simple. Really, it really is. Now, there are answers, right? The number one answer is healthcare. Yeah, you have higher wages, but you still don't have healthcare. Well, we're going to guarantee it to you. And guess what else? If they did that, and you got to make the case, it would actually improve the economy even more. We're going to raise taxes on the billionaires. So there will be enough police, so you won't have to see federales in your streets. That's what the Democrats should be saying. But as far as I can tell, they're not interested in better policies. They're only interested in changing their marketing. And that doesn't work all the time. So, for example, I was really taken by this story and a couple of others about how when you try to change your market, the Democrats are saying, well, we need to market ourselves better, right? We need to appeal to younger voters, and we're not winning the battle now for voters of color the way we used to. So we got to figure out a different way to talk to them. We got to use different slogans, right? So that doesn't always work. So Cracker Barrel, their logo change sparks fury. And I don't like this logo change. But I'm going to talk about Cracker Barrel for a moment. I think I've been to Cracker Barrel in my life once. When we drove across the country, returned from when I drove my family back from Monterey, we stopped at a Cracker Barrel. I believe it was in Virginia, may have been Tennessee. I'm not really sure. Probably Virginia, Southwest Virginia. So you can see in that image there, this is from Newsweek, the far left is the old logo, and this dates back about 50 years to the 70s. There's the man in the wooden old-fashioned kind of chair with his elbow resting on the Cracker Barrel, and that's the old logo. And people are very, familiar with it. I certainly am seeing it on the highways. But now the new logo is this more modern logo, just in the middle. There's no Cracker Barrel. There's no older gentlemen in overalls, and people really, really don't like it. And I get it. It's so bland. It's boring. I don't like it either. And apparently this has led, it's not, since the announcement, we've seen the stock price of Cracker Barrel drop. Now it's dropped. Maybe it's being a little bit overstated. I think the announcement was just this week, maybe a couple of weeks ago. But you see the high was a little over 71 back in July, and now it's down to 55.9. I think the announcement was about a week ago, and I don't know if you can see the, if I put my cursor, but around August 15th, so it had dropped from July, sales are down, then it comes up, bounces back. So prices bounce around. It's down. It's down about 18% now, they're saying, in the past month. So that's a significant drop. I'm not sure how much you can attribute to the change in the logo. But here's the thing. Well, before talk about another product that changed its marketing and also saw a real drop. By the way, similar rationale too. Apparently, Cracker Barrel, people are saying this is woke. The old guy in the overalls, it was kind of a caricature of the, rural hayseed type, and we don't want to be demeaning to them, or we don't want to only appeal to that rural type person. We want to have a more diverse group of customers. So we're going to update our logo and try to appeal to younger people and all that. That's the theory. I think it was a stupid theory. I don't know whether that was really the reason. I don't know what motivated this. I don't know that there was some sort of excessive wokeism. But certainly that is the reason, or at least the reason attributed, was certainly, let's put it this way, a backlash against, you want to call it wokeism? I don't know, diversity in advertising. Bud Light, this is over a year ago, this headline reflecting on the decision now 2 years plus ago to use Dylan Mulvaney. I don't know if Dylan Mulvaney is really considered trans, maybe a cross-dresser. In other words, I'm not even certain. Some people have said Dylan Mulvaney doesn't consider herself to be a woman, but sometimes wears women's clothing. Regardless, using them in an ad just crushed Bud Light. Bud Light lost a ton of sales. And I think according to that article, it was still the number one selling beer in America, but it lost 20% of the market share, something of that nature. Actually, now I don't believe it's the number one. Number one selling beer is Mexican beer Modelo. And they have a great ad campaign. They do. I don't know if the beer's any good, but the ad campaign's good. Maybe their beers, I think what people tell me is Modelo is a little bit better than Bud Light. It's a little tastier than Bud Light. So part of it is the quality. But both Bud Light and Cracker Barrel changing their advertising campaign, one changing their logo, moving away from kind of the rural hayseed, picture, the other embracing diversity with a cross-dresser as a spokesperson, and it killed them both, right? They lost, big drops in corporate value. I don't really think in the end it'll hurt Cracker Barrel very much, but maybe. The NFL right now going through a little bit of this too. So this was something I didn't know. Apparently there are male NFL cheerleaders. I probably have seen them. I don't know. I don't really, and that's interesting that I didn't even know this. But apparently some people are really outraged. And at least in this article at CBC, Canadian News, CBC, they show a picture of two Minnesota Vikings male cheerleaders who are apparently pretty feminized. I'm not sure if they were wearing makeup or not, but maybe trans. I don't think so. I'm not really sure. I didn't really look into it. But the idea is that we're not going to discriminate when it comes to cheerleaders. We'll hire male cheerleaders as well as female. Now, I don't care. I mean, it's irrelevant to me. I don't watch NFL games for the cheerleaders. I'm trying not to watch NFL at all. Fans apparently, the old, middle America heartland football fan doesn't want to see men as cheerleaders, or at least not who are dressed up as women or in sort of sexy, skimpy outfits. It's one thing if they're wearing, long pants like a George W. Bush type at Yale with a megaphone and sort of leading the cheers and tossing the cheer leader, the flyers in the air, that's fine. But when they're dancing around, prancing around, that's not masculine. So people don't like it. And I get it. They don't. Whatever. I don't care, but they don't like it. It's not going to hurt NFL. NFL couldn't care less. I mean, yeah, they get a little bit of bad press. You think anyone's going to stop watching the games because of this? That's not why they watch the games. People watch the NFL because they like watching football. They like the product. Now, there are things not to like about the product, the injuries, the crushed bones. It's bad. The brain trauma that every NFL player suffers from to some degree or another. Yeah, those are bad things. I don't like them. I'm really trying to move away from football. But I do find it exciting. I watch these athletes do amazing things with their bodies, things I could never, ever do. It's pretty extraordinary. It really is. Just bigger, faster, stronger, jump higher. The ability to catch a football with one hand or throw a football 65 yards. It's amazing. So yeah, it's exciting. We don't know what the outcome's going to be. So even if people don't really like the woke cheerleading or what have you, they're still going to watch the game because the product itself is incredibly attractive, appealing, and desirable to many, many millions of people. The product itself is really good. Now, that ain't the case with Cracker Barrel. Have you ever been to Cracker Barrel? The food sucks. It's awful. It's barely edible. You know, I was there once and I was like, this is horrible. And Bud Light, it's horrible. The only reason people drink Bud Light is because of the ads, because they had funny ads. The Bud Night, the Bud Light, whatever. I don't remember all their ads, but that's the only reason. And, you know, all the constant marketing. People were cajoled into purchasing something that isn't very good. And that is not differentiable from other beers like Coors Light or Miller Lite. And apparently Modelo is actually a little better, and it's outselling it now. So if you have a crappy product and you're only trying to sell it through your marketing, well, that may be a huge flop, as we're seeing both from Cracker Barrel and from Bud Light. But if you have a really good product that people want, like the NFL, as corrupt as it is, as bad as it is, in so many different ways, the cheating, the violence, people still actually want to see football. They want to see that product. It's better than any other alternative also. It's superior. Superior to college football. They're better. You can see they're better. It's not like Bud Light is really better than Miller Lite or Coors Light. You can't tell the difference. There's no difference. They're all just water, basically. But the NFL is a cut above the competition. So yeah, who cares? So there's some men dressed up like sort of scanty clothes. Who cares? We're still going to watch the game. We might get pissed off about it. It's not going to stop us from watching this football. So the Democratic Party has made a decision. Hey, we just need to market better. We just, you know, it's not like our product isn't great. So just like Bud Light, just like Cracker Barrel, they're seeing huge drop off in their product desirability. But it ain't because of their marketing. It's because they suck. It's because the party's lousy. And they don't get it. They're like Bud Light, like Cracker Barrel. Well, let's figure out a different way to market. Let's market ourselves a little better. Let's come up with a different logo if we're Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel sales have been dropping. It's not like Cracker Barrel was doing well. That's part of the reason they went with their new logo. They're not doing well because their food isn't very good. So what is the Democratic Party solution? Is it let's figure out how to be a better party? Let's figure out how to represent the American people. Let's try to be put first and front and center the wishes, desires, needs of poor, struggling, and working people? Is that what they're saying? No. Because you'd think that's what they would say. I would think that if I was, in fact, when I do my video, I'm like, how can I make this video better? How can I now there's other factors. How can I market it better? How can I get in front of more people? Sure. But I recognize that in the end, to have success in this space, I got to do good videos. I got to do videos that people want. Otherwise, I will lose or I will never gain much support, which maybe I won't. I don't know. But you can see the Democratic Party losing share year after year after year. Now, wouldn't you say to yourself, if you're a Democratic advisor, what are we doing wrong here? What do we have to change? How can we provide a better party? How can we sell a better party to the American public so they'll want to support us? But that's not what they say. They don't say that. They just say, how can we be better salespeople? That's all. So this advisor, Porsche, says that when they're talking about the Democrat Party, well, do we need to spend more money on persuading people, or do we have to try to figure out who to register? Or like you think you say, call the debate between spending money to persuade or register new voters a false choice. How about the debate between spending money to persuade or register new voters or promote policies that will lead to a better quality of life for the American people? How about we think of that as a possible option in our debate, right? Because if you want more voters, don't you want to appeal to them in ways that they will tangibly understand their lives are better? No, the Democrat Party doesn't think about that at all. It's either we're going to try to persuade you, come up with a different logo, basically, or else we're going to, buy more advertising time so we can register, bring new people in. But not because our policies are better. If we're going to win, we've got to be competitive. We need to be investing in both. But the idea of trying to attract people to your banner because your policies are good, that seems utterly foreign to the Democratic Party. And I talked about this yesterday, but I bring it back up because you can see in products, you can see in services that if they focus solely on marketing, they lose people. Their product sucks, like the Democrat Party. It doesn't matter how good your marketing is or bad. In the end, you cannot, hope to survive. Hector Sanchez Barba, the president and chief executive of Mi Familia Vota, a nonpartisan group that registers Latino voters, said it would be a major mistake if progressive donors cut off organizations like his. So he's saying, hey, I know Latino men voted for Trump, but don't stop trying to register more Latinos. It's my job, or it's the job of the Democratic leaders, he said, to sell Latinos on the Democratic Party, not to promote policies that will lead to better lives for Latinos. That's not their job. Their job is only to sell them. Well, again, you can sell people crap. You can sell them Bud Light. You can sell them Cracker Barrel crap. But in the end, they're going to stop buying it. Now, what may precipitate that is a bad ad campaign. But if you have a lousy product and your competition has figured out a better way to reach people, you know how you beat them? You come up with a better product. You don't figure out a way to sell, to make fools and chumps of people again. And as I said earlier in the program, people want to feel safe. They do feel safer in the District of Columbia right now because of all those federal troops, ICE. They feel safer. They may not like having the federal troops. They might prefer to have DC cops. They might prefer even more not to have all the guns. They might prefer even more to have, some type of smart drug programs and all manner of different ways that we can address crime. But in the end, if the choice is between a Democratic administration that doesn't keep them safe and a Republican one that does, albeit through very high-handed, overarching means, they're going to choose the latter. If it's a choice between a party that protects American jobs and doesn't, when both parties are indifferent or hostile to unions, indifferent to or hostile to any kind of government-funded or provided health care, well, they're going to choose the party that at least promotes American manufacturing through tariffs. Well, perfect example. Democrats want to sell better, but they're utterly unwilling to change their message, even when their message is incredibly unpopular. And when they do change it, they get a positive reception. They go right back to the bad old message. Catherine Clark, number 2 Democrat in the House. She's said something that actually got people excited, that got young voters jazzed, that put her in the media. Attention, the spotlight. She said, yeah, there's a genocide in Gaza. Did she stick by that? Did she stick by that change? Making her party just a little bit less awful? Well, let's find out.
Stopping the starvation and genocide and destruction of Gaza.
We have a chapter in the Congresswoman's district, and they were at this meeting where the Congresswoman said, we must take action in time to make a difference, whether that is stopping the starvation and genocide and destruction of Gaza, or whether it means working to stop redistricting that is going on. Well, we were very happy that she used the word genocide, and there were a number of media reports saying that she was the highest level person in the Democratic Party to come out and call it what it is, which is genocide. And then, lo and behold, 4 days later, she comes out saying, last week, while attending an event in my district, I repeated the word genocide in response to a question. I wanted to be clear, I am not accusing Israel of genocide. So that.
All right, so there you have. So she just backs down, right? Complete pullback from a position that the American public, 8% of Democrats support Israel. She's the second highest ranking Democrat. You want, I assume, to build up your party. You're losing registrations. The Republicans are more popular than the Democrats right now. And you finally say something that kind of does reflect where the American people are, and more specifically, where your party's voters are. And you say, oh no, I didn't mean it. Israel's not committing genocide. The hell it isn't. We just talked about there's endgame starvation now in Gaza City. Pretty much every reputable organization on the ground, including Israeli groups, are saying, yes, it's a genocide. Including Israeli soldiers are saying, yes, we're committing genocide. Including Holocaust survivors are saying, yes, Israel's committing genocide. But Catherine Clark, she can't say it. Nope, because her Zionazi masters at AIPAC say, nope, you can't say it.
That we find is just horrible. I mean, first of all, it is a genocide. You can read it from...
By the way, Medea, who's speaking there, I believe she's Jewish. I'm Jewish. I'm not anti-Semitic, but I am anti-Israel. I'm anti-Zionazi. Medea's Jewish. This is not a position that you're going to suddenly lose. What you're going to lose are some billionaire supporters, some billionaire money. And that's what Catherine Clark is absolutely unwilling to give up. Now, is she unwilling to give it up because she thinks, well, I can't win elections, or my party can't win elections? Or is she like, I like hanging out in the Hamptons. Well, she's from Massachusetts. I like hanging out in Martha's Vineyard with the billionaires. I like hanging out in Nantucket. I want to get a nice, cushy job as a lobbyist. And I'm putting that in jeopardy. If I say something that's popular and accurate and calls out power with truth, I'm putting myself at risk. I don't want to do that. Yeah, I think that's what's happening, don't you?
National Human Rights Watch, International Court of Justice says plausible genocide. Israeli scholars, genocide scholars call it genocide. The main Israeli human rights organization, B'Tselem, calls it a genocide. It is a genocide. And we were very proud of her for saying it. And now we're just so devastated that she would take it back. And we're thinking, God, is AIPAC so powerful in this place that once you call it like it is, you are immediately forced to retract the truth. What does that say about the Congresswoman? And what does it say about Congress?
Yeah, no. And what does it say about Democrats particularly? Because you do have Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, yeah, it's a genocide, and repeating it. I think maybe AOC used the word once. Bernie won't say it. So what does it say about Democrats in particular that they cannot use the word, even though their base is begging them, imploring them to? Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's really not. Maybe they're right. Maybe that famine that Israel's causing, maybe that's not fair to say that's genocide. Calling it a war crime, nah. Probably 500,000 dead, very possibly at this point. Nah. Complete occupation, going door to door, wiping out, flattening every building, refusing to let people leave. Apparently there's a village in the West Bank, a Palestinian village that's been completely closed off, like no one can go in or out. That's not genocide. I do this program because I want us to gather, to unite in support of a better alternative, something that will work for all of us. We don't have that. We don't have that in our government. We don't have that in either of our major parties. We have got to figure out a way to build a true alternative to the warmonger parties, to the corporate parties, to the offshore parties, to the short-timers, the environmental destroyers. That's why we do this here. Thank you so much for being part of Halitics. I will be back Monday. No Arlen. It won't be Arlen Monday. Arlen will be Tuesday unless something changes. And I'll regale you with tales of my trip to New Jersey and my campaigning for Mamdani. Thank you so much for being part of Halitics. Have a great weekend.